Hello everyone, welcome to automationdocs.com. This is continuation of the previous video where I explained one of the method how the drop-down values can be compared against expected, but it was more or less like the old-fashioned or the legacy pattern that we talked about. In this particular video, we'll talk about how we can use Java stream and Lambda expressions. This will reduce the number of lines of the code and simplify the expressions. We'll see this practically, but before I jump to this is what we spoke in the previous video. By using the for loop, we iterated. First, we put the condition if the sizes are equal. If the sizes are equal, then we proceed further and we compared. If all the elements are present, whatever mismatches, we added them into a mismatches array list, and then we have thrown the exception. This is more or like the legacy approach. Let me start with this new method where I'm gonna use array list along with Java stream and Lambda expression. Okay, I'll explain in very short about Lambda expression, how it looks like, and how Java stream simplifies our drop down value comparison over here. But let's go ahead and get started. What I'm gonna do is this time I'm gonna create a method, public void drop down validation, and I'm gonna annotate this with @test. Okay, because I already have a main method, and my expected values remain same. I'm just gonna do a copy paste of expected value, and these things remains same. Okay, I have shown you a very simple drop down, but later on I'll show you another drop down where which is not a standard select drop down, and we'll try to understand how we can use or how we can work with the jQuery drop down for these kind of scenarios. Okay, let's continue. So I have this OS as an object of select class. Now I'm navigating to this drop down, and then I'm trying to find out let me go there. Yeah, so this is the drop down. So I'm navigating to this particular page, and I'm trying to, if I inspect it, you see this one, it is having select tag, meaning it is a standard HTML drop down, so that will work with the select class, which is having ID programming language, and that is what I'm sorry, if you see here, I have used over here find by ID, and then I'm creating the object of the select class. Now to move further, uh, what we need, okay, so this time what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna create two array list. Okay, so let's say a list of string, which is going to be my, let's say, expected values. Okay, and second, again similar, list of string actual values. Okay, and at the end I'm simply gonna compare two lists. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna say compare if expected values dot equals actual values. Okay, so here again your some reporting logic will come into picture. In my case, I'm just gonna say drop down values are as expected. In the else part, you will have your a logic to report the error, where you're gonna capture the screenshot, attach the screenshot to your report, and all those stuff. For now, I'm just gonna say compare failed. Compare failed. Expected values are expected values plus actual values are actual values. Okay, this will make more sense. This will give me a better report. Okay, so this logic we have written. Now the main point is, how are we gonna capture the expected values and actual values? Okay, expected value is pretty simple. I have the expected values over here. So in the last video, what we did is we used arrays dot as list, and then we split this particular values. Okay, and what's the problem? Rename expected values. Okay, so this should be the expected. Let's say I'll say expected strings, expected str, and I'm gonna say expected str. Sorry, expected str. Okay, and this is going to be my expected values. Expected values, and this is going to be the actual values. Let's see what is the problem, we'll check. But for now, okay, this is converted. Now this is a very simple way. But now let's say along with splitting, you want to make sure that you are trimming out the spaces. Let's say there might be a situation where you are adding some extra spaces sometime while doing a copy paste. My comparison is gonna fail. Let's say you want to make sure that you sort whatever data you are providing, you sort it and then only compare. Let's say there is another operation where you want to convert it to the lower case before you perform the comparison, maybe, right? So let's say you have some conditions like that, right? So instead of going into this particular way for creation of the list, what we are gonna do is we are gonna move in this particular case in little different way. What we are gonna do is, let's say arrays dot, this time we are gonna convert, or we are gonna use a string method out of the array. Okay, and in the string method, again the string will accept, in this particular case, an object array. So again I'm gonna use the same thing, split with semicolon. Okay, now this particular this particular line of the code have created a stream of the data, right? And that stream of the data will have this various values in it. Now what I next is I want to trim the spaces from each of the element that I have here. Okay, before I make a comparison, I want to make sure that I trim spaces out of each and every element. So what I'm going to do is dot. Okay, there is I'm sorry. Okay, there is an expression called as there is an operation called as map. Okay, which is an intermediate operation. Again, I'll talk in bit detail about this. I'm gonna use map. Okay, now inside a map, you see it accepts a function. Okay, so this basically accepts a lambda function or lambda expression. Okay, I'll talk about it. But for now, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna use the reference, object reference. So I know that the element or the value that is present inside my list is a string. Okay, so I'm gonna use string, then double colon. On the string I want to perform a trim operation. Okay, so this is a simple way how I can call the method out of string. So this operation will be performed. This is an intermediate operation. If I see map, that is nothing but your intermediate operation. So this intermediate operation will be performed over all the values that are split by semicolon, meaning on all these values the intermediate operation will be performed, where the trim operation is performed where it has removed all your values. So that is your first operation. Now the second operation, let's say after trimming, you want to make sure that you want to convert it into a lowercase. So again, you are going to use the same thing, map, and then string, and then lowercase. Okay, but let's say in my case I don't want to do that lowercase operation. So the next thing what I want to do is I want to perform the sorting. So I need not to do it separately. Here itself I can use a sorted method. So now this will sort the data. Now once the data is sorted, once it is trimmed, let's say once it is converted into lowercase, I'm gonna store the data. Now how can I store the data here in this from this trim? So there is a the terminal method which is collect. Okay, so collect, if you see, it accepts collector. Okay, so I'm gonna use collector dot, okay, it should be collectors dot to list. Okay, so this will convert or this will return a array list. Let us go in little more detail about it. What you know what it mean step by step. So the left hand side is fine. Arrays. So I used arrays because I wanted to use this trim, because this trim method is present in the arrays class. Now inside an stream, so this will convert basically any collection into a stream of the data. Okay. Now I'm sorry. Okay. Now here you see a map operation after that. So map operation is basically used, to apply the function to the each element of the stream. As I said, each element of the stream, the operation will be performed on. Let's say here is a space before Java, or let's say after C++ there is a space, or let's say before Python there are two spaces. So the operation will be performed on each and every element where the spaces are trimmed, and then it is sorted out, and then the collector method will be used where we are using collector, and then where I have multiple operations, to list or to set or few other. Okay, so one thing you see double colon over here. Now this double colon, it is basically syntax in Java that is known as method reference. So instead of instead of using a lambda expression, so in this particular case what you could have done is, if you want to use lambda expression, you could have done something like this: str lambda str dot trim. Okay, so this could have worked. Okay, but instead of using this lambda expression, I'm just gonna go ahead with what I had written, which is a method reference. Okay, so this will give me the expected values. Now let's find out the actual values. Okay, so in the actual values, um, okay, so how I'm gonna get the actual values? I'm gonna get it from OS, right? So OS dot, I know that I'm gonna get it from get options, which returns me a list. Okay, if I do dot on this, what method I see? Do I see a stream method? Yes, I have a stream method because this itself is a list. Okay, so on the list, I'm gonna perform the stream operation. Give me a sec. Okay, so in this particular case, this get options will return you a web element. So the first thing, okay, if I go to this one, okay, so here when I say web element, it is the locator of Java or locator of C++ or locator of C sharp. All these are the web elements. Now out of those web elements, I want to extract the actual text, and that I'm gonna do with the help of get text method. Okay, but in this particular case, I'm not gonna use for loop or for each loop, whereas I'm using this stream. Okay, now I'm gonna perform this intermediate operation over here because I want to retrieve the text out of all the web elements. So I'm gonna use map for my intermediate operation, and here uh, I can do something like this. So I want to, let's say, element lambda element dot get text. Okay, so this is the lambda expression which will retrieve all the the values from each web element that is present in into this trim, and it will return to the next terminal operation or intermediate operation. Okay, so this is one way, or the second way is again using your this method reference. Okay, where I'm gonna use, let's say, because I know that the type of all those objects that are present into stream is web element. So I'm just gonna write web element and the reference, and then I'm gonna call, I'm sorry, I'm gonna call the get text method. Okay, and that's pretty much this in fact looks simpler, right? And then next is I want to perform the trim operation. So again I'm gonna do the same thing. I'm gonna perform the trim, I'm gonna sort it, and I'm gonna collect. So rest other part remains same. My bad. Okay, so the difference was only getting the text. Okay, so now this actual values will have list of all the values from this particular drop down. Okay, pretty simple. And you see, I mean, how much code, redundant code we are removing. In fact, it's not redundant code, but the new approach of writing the code. Okay, so I have got expected values, I have got actual values, and I'm gonna simply, run it. Let's give a try. And this time I'll be running it with test-ng test because I want to run this at the test method. I do have a main method which I don't want to run because this new code I have written into test. So I'm gonna run it test-ng test. Let's see. Okay, it has launched, and then I see it is success. Okay, that's okay. Anyway, it is gonna success only because there are no assertion, but I'm more interested into console. Okay, and what it has printed into console. So you see it is telling compare has failed, expected values are, so these are my expected values, whereas actual values are this. Now if you notice a difference, there is a difference of this PHP1 and PHP that we made intentionally just to check the failure, right? And in this case we are checking, we are getting that failure, right? So the failure use case we have seen. I'm just gonna remove this PHP now and run it. Okay, and you see it is success, and you see the drop down values are as expected, where you see there is a space, before, after, and all the stuff. So all these spaces are ignored because we have used a trim functionality. So this is like a very simple way, and again this, in this particular case, we have seen a very standard drop down, right? So using the select class. I'm gonna stop this video over here, but in my next video, which is going to be bit small one, where I'm gonna talk about how we can deal with this particular drop down, which is not a select drop down. If I inspect it, it is not a select drop down, and you see all these values are present into li, ul, and all the stuff. Okay, so I'm gonna stop this video, and I'll see you in my next video. Thanks for watching. See you in the next video. Thank you.